That second tip is about taking action in reflecting what you now know about yourself, what your limiting thoughts are, and then writing about them. So I had an experience in traveling recently. I went to Vegas, and the trip wasn't exactly what I hoped it would be. I didn't profit as much as I really, really wanted to. I still profited well, but I was able to take it back to what did I get out of this that wasn't monetary profit? And this is so important for dancers to start to implement right now in their career, because if you've been dancing for a while, you know that it can go up and down. There's going to be seasons where the clubs are very busy and clubs are not. There's going to be seasons in your life when you have other things going on, and it's very hard for you to get your head into the selling zone to make the money that you need to make. So whatever the reason being, it's not a very consistent cash flow all the time. It ebbs and flows. So be it. But if you're always basing and validating the efforts of your labor on the amount of money you take home, you're often going to find yourself going through these roller coasters of emotions. And I've been there, and it is not good. The highs are great, sure. And then the next day you go in and you have a really bad shift, and then it's awful and no one wants to be around you. This is not a habit that you want to get in. So we're going to address that. This is the action part that we're talking about in that quote. Reflect and write about it. So if you're dancing or you're thinking about dancing, write down after your shift 3 non-monetary wins from the night. So taking it back to my Vegas trip, I did not gross the dollar that I set out when I got on the plane, but I took home 3 non-monetary wins. So the first one was I was able to make a new friend that I'm going to interview when I start my podcast. That she had a lot of good things to say about the customer experience and about her experience working in Vegas. And that win will reward me much more than making an extra like $300 that night would have. My second win was I got the motivation to work out more when I returned home, because I wanted to increase my athleticism so that I could have more endurance and working in a bigger club, put on a better stage show, and compete at the level of everyone else working at that club. So I got what I would have normally called in a fixed mindset a challenge and turned it into an opportunity. I now have an opportunity to spend the next year or however long until I go back to Vegas to retrain my body, work on some pole tricks, work on some stage show, all that stuff, so that I can come back and be 5 times better than the last time I was there. The third thing that I took home, the third non-monetary win that I took home with me, was as I was leaving Vegas and getting to the airport, I'm starving and I'm looking for food around me. So I find a taco stand there and I'm waiting for my tacos, and I'm like in this sweatshirt. And I think I may have still had my makeup on from the night before. And this guy turns to me and goes, "Are you waiting for those tacos?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, okay." And he starts talking to me and he's like, "Where are you going?" And I'm like, "Chicago." He's like, "Oh, me too." I'm like, "Oh, we're on the same flight." And he's like, "So what do you do?" And I'm like looking at him like, "Really? Like this isn't obvious to you?" I said, "Well, I strip. I work in the club industry. I've been in it for a while." And he's like, "Oh, that's really cool." And we were talking about investments. I said, I want to start investing my money and be smarter about that. I'm doing some property investment, but I'm also interested in stock investment too. And I have some small funds, but they're on a robot invests for me. And he said, "Well, I actually work in the investment banking industry, and that's what I do is I help people invest their money." And he said, "Well, when you get settled in and after the holidays, why don't we go grab a bite and I can show you some things to help you start building a stock portfolio?" I could have been mad that I didn't make the extra $300 that I wanted to make in Vegas, but meeting people that are going to help me grow my passions, my hobbies, motivate me to work on my physical fitness, help me invest my money, that's going to return me a much larger reward than 1 week in Vegas. So I'm telling you this because, like I said, those highs and lows, when you base your identity and your worth on the dollar profit that you make, can really sap you and can just keep you in that fixed mindset. And there's so much more at the end of this rainbow for you. There's a bigger pot of gold if you don't focus. I know that's crazy. We work in the club industry. Strippers love money. I'm not telling you to not focus on money. Yes, you're there to get money. But don't focus on it so strictly, because if you take a step back, there are opportunities waiting for you that are much bigger, and they will return you a bigger reward in many ways. And yes, also sometimes monetarily, you'll get a larger profit from them. Take time to notice the conversations that you're having with customers. Notice what you're talking about. We're going to talk about this more next week because we're talking about money. But take time to notice the opportunities that you let into your life based on what you're talking about to customers. And if you're having a hard time having conversations that are about the growth mindset, that are about profit in the larger scheme, consider that maybe if you change your vocabulary, so bring it back to that first tip, you might start attracting people that are the types of customers that want to invest in you. I don't just mean spend money on you, drop some money in a champagne room. I mean invest in you. Give you money, give you tips, help you learn about yourself, help you learn about investing in your future, help you learn about things that you want to do outside of work, passions and hobbies that will extend beyond your dancer career. So that's all I have to say about your mindset. Now, this can get really, really big, and it will get really big. I'm going to give you some tools for those of you that have subscribed to the email list, and if you haven't, go ahead and go to my site and subscribe. I'm going to give you some tools to help you start thinking about your growth mindset and how to become more present with that. In addition to that, next week I mentioned I'm going to be talking about money. So with money, we're going to be talking about financial auditing, so working on your budget. We're also going to talk about financial vocabulary too, so bringing that back to the conversation with customers. If you have subscribed to the newsletter, I am sending you last week's tips on self-care, some etiquette tips, and what else? Feel free to ask questions as well. I will also be sending you an invite to a Facebook group so we can kind of keep this conversation going. So if you do get a chance to have some time with yourself and think about your mindset, write me a DM or send me a DM or respond to the email in the newsletter. I want to hear what you've learned about yourself and where you can start changing that thought process and making yourself more successful inside the club and also outside of the club.